Okay, Lindsay, does it look like everyone's been admitted?
Yeah, I think so. I'll keep letting people in as they come.
Okay, fantastic. Then I think we should get started. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second of our meeting series on environmental justice. My name is Will Nelson. I'm a principal planner with Contra Costa County and the project manager for Envision Contra Costa 2040. And we're happy to have you here. I see some familiar faces from last week and I think some new faces as well. So it's great to have everyone. We're very excited that you're taking interest in this project. You know, a lot of Envision 2040 has been based on community input and going out and meeting with people in their communities, having these Zooms since we've been forced to do that with the pandemic. And so we're delighted to see you all here. In a couple minutes, Joanna Jansen from our consultant Placeworks will go through a presentation about the project and what we're going to be doing here tonight. First, I do want to introduce everybody from the county and from Placeworks. If we could all just wave our hands, wave at everyone, all our staff that's here tonight. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to our Spanish interpreter for tonight, Marina, and she'll have a few words, and then she'll be passing it on to Joanna. Thanks again for coming.
Buenas noches. Para las personas que necesitan interpretación al español, les va a aparecer un globito al fondo de su pantalla a mano derecha. Háganle clic a ese globito y escojan español para escuchar la presentación en español. Gracias. Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you, Marina. Thanks, Will. Welcome, everyone. And thank you very much for being here tonight. This is the second of 3 meetings to talk about some draft policies and actions to address environmental justice in Contra Costa County. And before we get started, we just all want to learn a little bit about who else is here with us tonight. So we're going to ask you to answer a poll real quick so we can get a sense of who we're sharing this conversation with. You should see some questions on your screen now, just to ask a little bit about what is your role in Contra Costa County and who else is here. And then also what part of county do you work or live in? You can select, for both of these, you can select all that apply. We understand that people might play many different roles in your life. So we're interested to get a sense of that. We'll have about 30 more seconds on the poll to give people a chance to respond. And then we'll keep on moving. This helps us learn kind of who we're doing a good job at reaching and where we might target our efforts to increase our outreach. All right. I think that's probably good enough of a sense, Lindsay. We don't need to be too scientific here. A lot of residents, thank you. That's what we would expect. We'd love to see some more folks from East County, but we're really happy to see West County well represented and some countywide and Central County folks as well. So thank you all very much for taking a few minutes to help us learn a little bit about who's here tonight. I appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and get started with the presentation. And Tanya can share her screen so that we can all be looking at the same slides. So tonight, this meeting is a part of Envision Contra Costa. I think many of you are familiar with this process overall. On the next slide, we want to just make sure that you know that you are welcome here and that we are really grateful for you for contributing your time and your energy today. So thank you very much. Marina mentioned that there is interpretation available in Spanish, and so for anyone who wants to access the interpretation, if you're on a computer, select the globe, as Marina said, at the bottom of the screen, and then select Spanish over to the right. If you're on a smartphone or a tablet, use those little 3 dots at the bottom of the screen select language interpretation, and then you'll be given the option for Spanish. So that's how to navigate to interpretation if you need that. One more note on the technology. When we get to the Q&A period, we're going to be asking you to use the raise hand feature, just so we can do this kind of in an orderly way. And if you want to raise your hand, look across the bottom of the screen to find the little person icon that says participants, and then click the blue raise hand feature. If you're on a smartphone or tablet, you're going to first use those three dots across the top and then select raise hand in the words. Please do use that. It's much easier for us to keep an eye on all of the different folks who want to participate. If you would please use the raise hand feature rather than noting in the chat that you have a question. We will try to catch everyone, but it's just easier for us to see with the raise hand feature. So thank you in advance. Okay, moving right along to today's agenda. This is we want this to be a collaborative discussion, but we do want it to be grounded in some shared information. So we're going to have a quick presentation, some questions and answers. Most of our time tonight is going to be spent in small group discussions with your neighbors and other county residents. And then we will hear from each other with reports back at the end. And just quickly recap with next steps following tonight before we close. The main goal here tonight is to get your feedback and ideas about draft goals, policies, and actions that we have developed so far to improve environmental justice for the county. We sent out links to the draft document in the email that you received with this meeting link. And again, right as you were joining this meeting, we posted that in the chat. So you have a couple of links, same link, a couple times, to a PDF that includes draft policies that we're going to be focusing on in those small group discussions tonight. And I encourage you to have those documents ready. We'll be showing you the content on the screen to walk through in your small group. So don't worry if you don't have it open. But if you do have it open, that might just help support your participation in the conversation. So let's go ahead and give you a little bit of background. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, but I think we have a couple of new folks tonight, which is great. So just for everyone to be on the same page, this meeting is part of a project that's called Envision Contra Costa 2040. And that covers 3 different long-range planning projects in the county: the general plan, the zoning code, and the climate action plan, as well as an environmental impact report that's going to cover all 3 of those planning documents. On the next slide, I'm going to explain a little bit more about what each one of those documents is. The general plan guides development and conservation in the unincorporated county. It was last comprehensively updated in the 1990s, which means that a lot of the policies in place today were actually developed in the 1980s. There's some of that guidance that actually is still very relevant and reflects deeply held values in the county, but there's a lot that's outdated and needs to be updated to bring it into to more accurately reflect the 21st century. As we update the general plan, the Board of Supervisors has directed us to incorporate 4 major interrelated themes throughout the document. And all of these themes are going to be part of our discussion today. So those 4 themes are environmental justice, sustainability, community health, and economic development. The general plan covers many topics, but those are 4 of the themes that are going to come up over and over again in the plan and that we're getting into some of the details of today. The climate action plan is a long-range document that's focused very specifically on reducing greenhouse gas emissions from those sources that the county has some control over. So those include things like electricity, water and wastewater, solid waste, agriculture, transportation, crucially, land use, of course. And then finally, the zoning code reflects what can happen and how an individual site can be physically developed. And that could include regulating potential impacts to health and safety. So when we talk about Envision Contra Costa 2040, we're talking about all 3 of these very important plans that work together to guide the future of the county. On the next slide, we start to dive in a little bit more to the topic for tonight, which is the environmental justice topic. So when we update the general plan, there's a law that guides the legal requirements for what we need to address in terms of environmental justice. And it's called Senate Bill 1000 or SB 1000. This is a law that was passed by the state to guide communities towards environmental justice by integrating it into their planning efforts. You can see on this slide the state definition of environmental justice. There's many different definitions out there. I think for many of us, when we think about these topics and we talk about them with our folks that we've been meeting with in these communities, we think about just the basic right of all people to live and work and go to school in an environment that's healthy and clean. The reason why we need to have this law is because not all communities have that today. We really don't have equitable access to a healthy and clean environment. Some communities, almost always communities of color or low-income residents, have in the past experienced a combination of discrimination and political and economic disempowerment, with the result that today those communities experience a disproportionate burden of pollution and health impacts, as well as disproportionate social and economic disadvantages like poverty or housing instability. So California has identified communities who are facing that specific combination of challenges. And under the terms of SB 1000, those communities are referred to as the disadvantaged communities. So you'll see and hear that term used in our presentation and our documents that we're looking at tonight. And that's what that means. There are other terms like frontline communities, for example, that might be used. And so we're open to other terms as well, but that's the term that Senate Bill 1000 uses. So what are the requirements specifically for Senate Bill 1000? In these impacted communities, we are required to create policies and actions that will reduce pollution exposure and improve air quality, that will promote equitable access to public facilities, to healthy food, to safe and sanitary homes, and to opportunities for physical activity. Also, crucially, we want to be sure that as we're developing these policies and actions, we are engaging the community in that decision-making process. That hasn't always happened in the past, and we want to try to change that. So we also want to prioritize improvements and programs that address the needs and disadvantaged communities. Now, these aren't the only topics that might fall under the umbrella of environmental justice. Obviously, for example, as we work to lift up neighborhoods that were historically neglected and underserved, we also have to be aware of the potential for gentrification and displacement, for example. So there are a multitude of interrelated topics, but these are the core topics that the law wants to make sure that we cover and that are the right thing to address. So you'll see in the policies that we're going to be talking about tonight, these are some of the topics that are emphasized. On the next slide, you can see a map of the disadvantaged communities that have been identified based on the data that has been compiled by the state. The state used several different tools to analyze a combination of environmental, health, social, and economic data to understand which communities in California are most affected by economic injustice today. And the areas that are shown in orange on this map are those communities that meet that definition under SB 1000. SB 1000. So those are kind of the most severely impacted top 25% of census tracts in the state. And this is where these communities occur in Contra Costa. So that's probably not a surprise to any of us who are familiar with the geography of the county. And we are, very interested in particular to hear tonight and at all of our meetings from residents and folks who are members of these communities specifically, as well as from all county residents. One more thing to note about these communities, and we have, as part of the general plan, we're working on countywide policies, and the policy content that you've reviewed and that you'll be talking about tonight, it really has a countywide focus. and I want to encourage you to keep that lens for your discussion and your small groups tonight, is to think about policies that really will have a countywide applicability. But at the same time, we recognize that there are very specific conditions, very specific histories, very specific characters in each one of these communities. And so for every community in the unincorporated area where we're working, we have compiled what is called a community profile. The one shown here is for Bay Point, but we have these for over 20 different communities in Contra Costa. And I encourage you to check them out at the web link there on the Envision Contra Costa 2040.org website. So these profiles have much more information for the disadvantaged communities about the specific data points, whether it's about pollution burden or health outcomes that compile to identify that community as a disadvantaged community in the state's tool. In addition, the profiles also have some context for the community, as well as guiding principles, policies, and actions that are tailored to that specific neighborhood and that are based on numerous meetings that we have had with residents held in those communities before we went into shelter in place. So as a result of those meetings, as well as looking at input from advocacy organizations and best practices from other communities who are facing similar issues, we have drafted environmental justice goals, policies, and actions that we want your feedback on tonight. And Lindsay, or Zoom Questions, is going to send out a link to the complete draft document in the chat for this meeting. And you'll also, again, be looking at it on screen when you get into your small group. We're trying to break these meetings up into a set of 3 meetings so we don't have to tackle all of these policy topics in one meeting, because it's a lot. But I want to show you the full list of what we are going to be covering in these policies, even if you're only able to come to 1 or 2 of our 3 meetings. So the complete set of policy topics includes social and economic advantages, healthy food, safe and sanitary homes, jobs and economic stability, community engagement, safe, affordable, and multimodal transportation. And then on the next slide, it continues: public facilities, infrastructure and services, health services, recreational activities and parks, air quality, and safety from hazards and hazardous materials. So you can probably see, even just from a very quick run through of those topics, that many of them are interrelated, many of them influence and affect each other. So we certainly realize that, and we've tried to develop them in a comprehensive and holistic way, and take a deeper dive into subsets of topics over this course of these 3 meetings. I wanted to briefly bring you up to speed on the community input that we've had so far on these policies specifically. We are collecting right now community feedback in a brief survey through the end of this month. So if you go to envisioncontracosta2040.org/survey, you can fill that out. There's a couple of different surveys that we're going to be making available. One is more high level and kind of open-ended questions, and the other will enable you to go through the policies kind of one by one, the goals, policies, and actions, and provide individual input if you would like to go into that level of detail. We've also been meeting with community-based organizations in the county to collect input and to drive traffic to this survey and to this meeting that we're having here tonight. We're going to share a little bit more about that input that we've received so far with you as we go through the goals, policies, and actions in your small group. So that tees us up for the small group discussions shown on the next slide. You will be assigned into small groups in just a few minutes, and you're going to be working with the folks in that group to review the draft policy guidance and give us your feedback. In your small group, you're going to have 2 helpers from the county and/or PlaceWorks, one person to facilitate the discussion and another person to take notes as you are offering your comments and feedback. We want to encourage you to think about designating a spokesperson for the reports back. And we're going to help you stay aware of the time so that your group can move through a discussion of each one of tonight's 3 goals and have time to give input on each. Then after a little bit over an hour in your small groups, we're going to come back to this main room where we all are right now and share some reports back to hear what each other talked about and some of the ideas that were generated. We are going to have a small group that's conducted in Spanish. So if you would like to be part of that group, you can chat to Zoom questions and make sure that Lindsay knows your preference so she can assign you to small group number 5. So we're going to move into the small group discussions in just a few minutes after we have time for Q&A. And as you're working together, you're going to be addressing these 3 topics. First, about 20 minutes on each: community engagement, transportation, and infrastructure. And so again, you'll be working through the goals, policies, and actions for each one of those topics in just a few minutes. So as we're about to break into those small groups, let me just offer some guidelines for productive conversation. And I will say that all of our conversations so far as part of this project have been very productive, very respectful. I hope rewarding and meaningful for you as participants. They very much so are meaningful for us as the Envision Contra Costa 2040 team. So thank you. Just encourage everyone to continue to follow these guidelines, speak from your own experience, listen with the intent of understanding, respect differences that might arise in your conversation, differences of opinion, differences of experience. Be curious to learn about what the other person is describing. Let's make space for everyone to participate, and just know that we do value your questions. So if you're not understanding something, please don't be shy about asking for clarification so that you can participate fully in the conversation. Thank you. And so if you are in the small group and you're really excited about the conversation and it's time to move on to the next topic, but you have more you want to say, we've got you. Go to envisioncontracosta2040.org/survey, and you can give us more input there after tonight's meeting. Similarly, if you have friends or neighbors that you know would like to be part of this conversation and they can't be here tonight, that's fine. We want to hear from them too. Please share this link, envisioncontracosta2040.org survey. And you can have additional opportunities for input at your own pace and in your own time. So thank you in advance for the input you share here tonight and also through our surveys. And with that, that's the conclusion of the presentation. And we have some time for questions and answers. So again, please remember to just use the raise hand feature. And we have about 10 minutes now, and anything we don't get to in that time for to answer your clarifying questions, we can also tackle in the small groups as well. Thank you. Tanya, I think we can stop sharing your screen, and I'm going to scroll up and look for some raised hands here. Any questions that I can clarify? I'm not seeing any yet, but I'm wanting to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Many of you may have been to these meetings before and be well versed in what we're talking about. I'm happy to go ahead and launch us into the small groups. We really appreciate the conversations that we have there. So we can move into that if you all feel ready and there's no questions that you want answered before we start. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Lindsay, were you hoping to get a chance to do any behind the scenes work during the Q&A? Are we ready to go into small groups?
We are ready, and we're going to have 3 small groups. So the facilitators for the other small groups, you're going to get a notification to leave. You don't have to. But yeah, I'm going to launch the breakout rooms, and everyone's going to get a little notification and click on it and get in your small group.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Lindsay.
Mhm.
It all happened a little faster than expected. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Small groups. Thanks so much. I was able to visit each small group discussion and really appreciate all the ideas and discussion that I heard. I hope that felt productive for all of you. I was furiously scribbling lots of notes while I was listening, so thank you very much. And I know your note takers and facilitators were working hard too to capture your ideas. And now we want a chance to share some of those ideas with each other at the close of our meeting here. So we're going to do what we call some reports back. Do the groups, did you guys select a spokesperson? You ready to do your reports back? Yeah? Okay. So I'm gonna just share my screen here very quickly so that we have a little bit of overview to guide us. So hang on, I'm not on the right slide. Let me go back up. This week we have 3 small groups and 3 topics. So I think we can hear from everyone. On all 3 of the topics. So for each group, we want to hear from you about community engagement, transportation, and infrastructure. You please don't feel the need to repeat, every word from your discussion or every idea. But your note taker or Lindsay can share her screen and show the notes that your note taker took. And that can just help refresh you. We'd really love to hear about some of the big ideas, anything that really gave you pause that you were concerned about, any new exciting ideas that you came up with in your group, stuff that you agreed on. And if there was any areas where you really didn't have agreement, we'd be very interested to hear about that as well. So we're hoping that you can use this time to kind of represent your group's discussion and give us the other groups who weren't able to be in your same discussion a little sense of some of what you talked about. While you're listening to your neighbors reporting back, please feel free to use the reactions button at the bottom of your screen to show your support or agreement. And if there's anything at the end that didn't get covered that we need to circle back, we can do that too. So let's go ahead and get started with group number 1. Will, you guys ready to do a report back? You promised it wasn't going to be you this week.
I know. We really tried to. We couldn't come to a consensus, I guess, on who would be reporting back for us.
Will,
Although,
you don't want me to do it.
I actually do want you to do it because you had a lot.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Okay,
I'll do it, Will. I'll do it. I wrote down enough notes, but I'm sorry,
Mike.
group, but it's going to be slayed my way because. So banners for getting out the message. Banners. I'm sorry, but it works better for us in this small community. The MAC needs to be more transparent in more outreach to the public for what they're doing in regards to the communication between the county and them. Public parking at BART needs to be substantially better because it sucks. Enforcement of trash pickup and unincorporated areas needs to be stepped up to a higher level and enforced to a point where to make these people not feel like they can do it or they're going to get caught, because right now you don't get caught. Rodeo only has blue and green can every other week, which is a crime in itself, and they justified it by saying it was going to be $9 a month more. We had some stuff about transportation. The bus system doesn't work. It never has worked in this community. They should do some vouchers for Uber or something to justify the transportation outreach. That's all.
All right. Well, what I really appreciate about Mike is that he modeled for us both brevity and passion. So thank you very much for that, Mike. And group 2, you have a tough act to follow here, but we are ready to hear from you. Go ahead, David.
I think that's me, and I'm definitely not a cat.
I can,
So I can see that you're not a cat. So appreciate you holding the space for this. Thank you very much for it. And our group talked about like on connecting people through a newsletter that's both in Spanish and English to bridging the digital divide, right? We think, hey, we're on Zoom, everybody's here. No, there's folks that need to be connected in that way. Flyers, of course, postings in town centers. Love the banner idea, by the way, Mike. That's a good one. In terms of transportation, of course, access to bike, scooter, ride sharing programs where they can actually get a car and share that and utilize it. Being thoughtful of sea level rise in areas like Bethel Island, for instance, like how are people going to be able to get connected if the sea level is, of course, rising in those areas? Calming measures, traffic calming measures. Love this term. And the last one is traffic diets. So helping, so like you've got trucks that are going in like areas like North Richmond, going through community areas, putting them on traffic diets, common measures, road humps, that type of thing. And then we were talking about, I'm in Concord, but we're talking about this through the county, especially around the Concord Naval Weapons Station, is hubs, like a hub location where people can get services. So people who are temporarily experiencing homelessness, reentry, they can learn new skills and can have housing there. So, and we were long talking about also areas that have, that are malls that are just like dead spaces, turning them into vibrant spaces where people can get skills, live, breathe, and really enjoy that quality of living, getting back into life, really. And then infrastructure targeting land for nonprofit use, kind of like the Richmond Greenway. Having nonprofits utilize that land and be accountable to what's going on with that land. So really a zone, maybe it's zoning, maybe there's these parcels that could be converted into things like Bike World in Richmond along the Green Belt. So with that, our group was awesome. Group 2, rock on.
all right. Great job. Thank you, David. I'm glad to hear that group 2 had a good discussion tonight. And I think we'll turn it over to group 3 for a quick summary of your discussion.
So we went up to the wire in our discussion, literally got cut off on my thank you. But so I nominated Adrian since he had all the notes.
Thank you. So yeah, I was taking notes for group 3. Hi, I'm Adrian, for anyone who wasn't in my group or doesn't already know me. We echoed some of the points that I already heard in that, we want to be mindful in our outreach that not everybody is on social media. So we shouldn't lose sight of focus on printed medium, some older means of getting the word out there. We like the idea of finding, trusted community members or community groups and looking to them for assistance in getting our message out, and perhaps piggybacking on some of their events that they're already having anyways, as opposed to trying to make some new events on our own. We like the idea of having one county official like assigned per community. We're not fans of the term disadvantaged community either. I think we had a suggestion. I'll fill you in on what that was if I come to it here in my notes. With regards
special interest communities or
community is a special interest, I think it was, yeah.
something like that, yeah. It's in the notes in there somewhere.
Yeah, under transportation, we noted that, sometimes, maintaining a transit route can be difficult, if it needs to cross jurisdictional boundaries. For example, the grocery store situation in Rodeo came up a couple of times, and that is a difficult challenge to these types of transportation projects when it spans more than one community. In terms of, oh, here we are. So supporting improvements to transit, bikeways, and sidewalks. I mean, we really like sidewalks, in many places, those are, one of the biggest needs. But also we would like lighting, over these same improvements, making sure that there's adequate lighting to, from a safety standpoint, to make sure that these are sidewalks that people want to be walking down, or, traffic signals if need be. And moving along to infrastructure, public facilities should include health services facilities. We like the idea of metrics, to create a standardized baseline, because we recognize that not all communities need the same level of investment. And it would be helpful to identify, in some sort of standardized way, right at the outset, where each community stands. We like the idea of funding, not just for green infrastructure projects, but, just for any of these projects that we're considering in disadvantaged communities. We feel like that funding should prioritize grants, as opposed to like microloans or, other types of loans that would be more of a burden for small business owners that are having a hard time as it is right now. And I think that about covers what I have. So thank you.
All right, great job. Thank you, Adrian, and thank you very much, Group 3. And just a note that I know for many of you, when we got to the goal about infrastructure and talked about services, for more than one group, this idea about health services and equitable access to health services kind of popped up very early on in that conversation. That is one of the goals for next week in our third and final meeting of this series, is the goal and policies and actions that address health services. So if you're able to join us a week from today on Wednesday, that is also a possibility where we can talk a little bit more about health services specifically.
I have a technical question, quick. Can we just join with information we already have for the next meeting, or do we have to buy a new ticket?
Thank you so much for asking that question. You definitely don't have to buy a ticket because this is totally free, but
well, I know I'm used to using the term.
If you don't register for each individual meeting, you won't get the email notices. You can reuse this link a week from today, and that's okay if you want to do that. But just be aware that we are also using the individual event registrations for each meeting, to make sure that we're communicating to people and getting you the information that you need for the meeting. So don't feel like going back and registering. You don't have to. You can reuse this link. But if you do register for meeting number 3, you'll be on the mailing list to make sure that you get all those communications.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a great segue into our discussion about next steps. So let me share my screen one more time about that. We have one more meeting, as I was just saying, a week from today on Wednesday, the 17th, and we're going to be talking about food, health services, recreation, air quality, and hazardous materials. So we're going to tackle 5 goals as opposed to 3 at that meeting, but each of these goals are a little bit less extensive content than the ones that we've done at meetings number 1 and 2. So we have a plan for getting through them, and there's some really interesting topics here. I hope you'll be able to join us or encourage your friends and neighbors to do so. After that, we are going to be taking an update to the Countywide Sustainability Commission on their meeting of February 22nd. Those are, of course, open to the public. They're virtual meetings like this, so you're welcome to attend and listen into the Sustainability Commission's discussion. And then we do have our online survey open for the rest of February 28th. That's at the Envision Contra Costa 2040.org website. So again, if you feel like you want more chance to comment on those policies really one by one, there is a survey there for you to do that. And if you or your friends and loved ones just want to offer kind of bigger picture feedback, that's there too. So please check that out. It's open until February 28th. In March, we're going to the Sustainability Committee of the Board of Supervisors. to present all the feedback that we've gathered from these meetings and from the surveys, and get some direction from them on taking the next step with refining these policies and actions given your input. And then we're going to work on folding these pieces that you've been looking at into the overall draft general plan document. The draft general plan as a whole is going to encompass many topics that are related to some of these issues that we've been talking about tonight, like transportation and infrastructure, but that puts them into a countywide context. So that's a really important step. And the next time you see these revised policies, they will be part of that draft general plan that we're going to be working on over about the next year or so. And then that plan, the plan as a whole, will have its own set of public involvement and public review opportunities leading up to its ultimate adoption. So that's where we're going and what we're going to be doing with your input that you so generously shared with us tonight. This slide has some helpful links to just keep track of us and make sure that you're staying updated. Lindsay is going to be putting these in the chat for you. Our overall project website has all of these other links. So if you just go there, you can find any of these other things. envisioncontracosta2040.org. Please remember that from tonight's meeting, envisioncontracosta2040.org. That's where you can take the survey. You can also upload a video. I'm told that people are into that. So, if you want to take us on a tour of your neighborhood or just give us a statement about what environmental justice means to you or what you want to see the county do differently, film it, upload it. We'd love to hear from you and see your perspective. And then the draft documents that we were looking at tonight, as well as the individual community profiles, are all available on envisioncontracosta2040.org under the documents section of the website. So if you live in one of these communities and you haven't seen your profile yet, I'd really encourage you to take a look at it. Your neighbors have given us a lot of great input, and we've done our best to put that together into a profile that represents what's unique about each community and what that community wants to see for itself in its future. So please do take a look at the community profiles. Those are going to be an important part of the updated general plan. And then finally, really, really, really appreciate you being here tonight and want to encourage you to keep in touch at all of our meetings and keep track of our progress as we pull these policies into the draft general plan and as we look towards publishing the draft climate action plan and other important milestones. You can sign up for the email list again at the website. And Will is always available. He's the project manager for the county for this process, Envision Contra Costa, and he can put you in touch with anybody else if he's not the bright point person. You can get in touch with him at this email address and this phone number. And there's his email in the chat. Let's see, I'm going to the chat and let's see, the Board of Supervisors subcommittee meeting date question came up. That is on March 22nd. Let me go back to this. March 22nd is the Board of Supervisors subcommittee. Okay. And so I am also just noting in the chat a few comments about the Eventbrite link. So I apologize to anyone who experienced confusion with that. Let me just say one more time, you can reuse your link from tonight, a week from today, on Wednesday, February 17th, to join at 6 p.m. And if not, you can go back to the website and register for meeting number 3. You do need to register for each one individually because some folks only wanted to focus on 1 or 2 of the topics. So we wanted to make that intentional for people who could choose their own adventure in terms of this meeting series. But please feel free to register or reuse this link, whatever is most convenient for you. I'm going to go ahead and oh, Erin is asking about a place to send photos. And yes, the website also has a place to upload photos. We've gotten some awesome photo submissions from county residents so far. Those are really exciting. We love to see those. We've seen some very beautiful, inspirational photos of Contra Costa County and also some photos of what people are not so happy about in the county. So you can definitely share both photos and video at envisioncontracosta2040.org. So I encourage you to do that. And I'm going to and just say thank you very much again to everyone. This is a lot of material tonight. You were all very committed and determined to get through it. So thank you so much. Your feedback is really valuable, and we're going to use it to make these policies and actions stronger. So thank you. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your evening. Thanks so much. Good night.